Welcome back, everyone, to BioFarm 21. We're going to go to Waterford now. We've just had a fantastic line from New Zealand, but unfortunately the Waterford internet connection isn't so good. So James Foley is dairy farmer down in Waterford, and he's going to talk on the transition to multi-species swords in Ireland. He is going to talk on his phone, and we're going to see his presentation. But unfortunately, what it means is we can't put questions to him, but please do send your questions in. We will then forward them by pigeon to James down in Waterford, and he will get back to you on those questions as well. So please don't let it stop you asking questions or making comments, because we'll make sure it gets to him. So sit back and enjoy James Foley now, dairy farmer from Waterford. James.
Hello there. It's a little bit less than ideal now doing this over the phone, but hopefully we can move forward. The slides kind of handy, but my talk is on the transition to multi-species swords in Ireland. I suppose in a kind of way it possibly should be called transition to diverse species in Ireland. We there's a lot of talk about multi-species, but that could be 6 or 8 grasses and no other different species in there. So diverse species would probably be a better word. If we could move on to the next slide there, please. We're from the southeast of Ireland. If anyone that doesn't know us, we're living about 15 miles from the sea in a place called Foley, Ballyduff on the border between Cork and Waterford. We have a website actually. If anyone wants to contact us afterwards or whatever, it's foleydoodiefarm.ie. There's links to stuff we've done on the farm, and we have a small kind of side business going on at the moment, which is produce from our garden, and that'll be Coda. My wife will be kind of in charge of that stuff. So we're here in County Waterford. I'll move on to the next slide. I'm on Twitter as well. At FoleyDoodie would be my Twitter handle. Kind of post up a good bit of stuff on that as well. So if you want to follow me or whatever, you're very welcome. I suppose to start off with my backstory. We bought the farm here in FoleyDoodie in 2000. We from Dungarvan originally, which is 20 miles away. We sold a little bit of land down there. Still have the home place, but we made the move in 2000. It happened to be the same year that I had finished my degree in agricultural science in UCD. So it was kind of, whatever thoughts I had about farming at that stage, about not farming or farming, that kind of went to the background, and we took on this big project here. I've been farming with my parents, Cam and Eileen, all that time, and more recently I got married to Clodagh in 2017, and we have 2 small children. I suppose it's a family farm. We've been my sisters are always been involved, their husbands as well. Clodagh's sisters help out as well, and my parents-in-law, I suppose. Everyone helps, whether they're driving tractors or minded children or whatever. It's definitely a family farm. So from the word go in 2000, we actually started reseeding the farm. It would be kind of we would call it a rundown farm. There's over 260 acres here, and the farmer had about 20 cows at the time, previous to us, and a lot of there was some scrub on the farm, and we probably, as we were told at the time, it was the right thing to do. We probably cleared back a lot of that scrub, and we kind of immediately put in as much new reseeding as possible, and that was progress from white clover, so that wouldn't have been any difference from the usual. But we started milking pretty quickly afterwards. We had been milking in Dungarvan about 50 to 60 cows, and once a year or two went, we got a little bit of quota, and we started milking kind of close to 100 cows, kind of from 2003 or 4 onward until the quota ended in 2015. We always winter milk. Be able to supply milk all year round if the market demanded it. Now, the next slide, please. I suppose the turning point post 2015, my changes of mindset or whatever. I suppose naively, I kind of thought that post 2015, our co-ops or whatever would have been putting milk into more higher value products. But when I saw that we were putting into milk powder, I kind of got a little bit despondent because I kind of knew that the co-ops in Ireland don't own any infant formula brands or a little bit of milk powder. It's not a lot of kind of things I would have thought we'd be going for, but I was kind of worried that we were kind of heading for, aiming for commodity supplies, and I never thought we'd get paid very well for that milk, and I suppose maybe hindsight is a good thing, but just only looking up the other night, I could see that an Tagus report that between 2015 and 2020 we got paid less than dairy farmers in the Netherlands. So we were following a kind of a New Zealand export type model, and my biggest problem was that we actually have a really good home market, which a lot of people don't seem to recognise is right on their doorstep. The UK has such a huge population, and even we can get to Paris within a day, so freight wouldn't be a major problem for us. And another thing was, I could see the structure of Irish farms. There's not too many 10,000 cow herds in Ireland, and I don't think it's ever going to be possible with the kind of fragmented land system that we have. Next slide, please. I suppose when I was researching all this, I came across a guy called Stuart Meikle, and he's a guy I got to know pretty well in the last couple of years. He's an agricultural management and policy specialist, economist, a writer, and advisor, and he does, I would say, probably no expert better than him on going from farm to fork in terms of how to manage a farm, going through to actually get the thing onto the supermarket shelf or whatever type of route. So he was adamant that we needed to encourage diversity of products on and off farm, and where I kind of started to get about the speech towards really was that he was starting to talk about unique selling points, and for a family farm kind of type setup in Ireland, we needed to have those kind of things, and diverse landscapes and diverse swards and all this kind of stuff. They all started to come to the fore, and so when I kind of learned about all of that, we actually set up a group, Regenerative Farming Ireland, of which Stuart would be the main driver, but we have a kind of an active Facebook group, but and other kind of projects in the pipeline. But we would have been trying to get together with other people, like-minded people as well. Next slide, please. You see there, I actually hope you can see something. It's just on the right hand side there's a diverse plate of food there, and below it is diverse sward, and I always knew that this sort of thing was the right thing to do in human nutrition. It's kind of like it's almost hard to believe that we didn't really think it was a good idea in animal nutrition as well. So I suppose but the thing was, it isn't actually anything new for animal nutrition either, because if you go to any feed mill and they do up a ration for you, they always, there's always multiple ingredients, and whether that be maybe 2 protein sources, 2 energy sources, or 2 fiber sources, there's always a mixture because they always knew that would help with animal performance. So, for us to look at multi-species sward in that end of things, there's nothing new here. But it just makes sense from a lot of perspectives. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we started in around 2018, I think it was, the first year we planted a multi-species sward, and on the right-hand slide there would be the typical ryegrass field, and the left is the multi-species sward. It doesn't look crazy different or anything like that, but you can tell a difference from when you're looking in over the ditch, I suppose. Yeah, so actually I had planned on doing in 2016, but when I went to go about getting seed, one of the seed merchants in Ireland actually put me off. He kind of, I suppose, the knowledge base wasn't there at the time, and he told me that the likes of chicory and plantain were not of agricultural merit, which I found kind of surprising at the time, and it kind of knocked me back a little bit in my thinking. Like, yeah, I put in a red and white clover sward with ryegrass, and I could spray it and whatever else, but I kind of, it put me back a year or two, but I eventually plucked up the courage and I went first, and we kind of haven't really looked back since. Next slide, please. That's just a typical mixture of one I put in this year, and to talk about different diversity there. There's different functional groups there. There's a few different grasses, a few different legumes, and a few different herbs. I think there's 14 species altogether there, and it's important, because every single plant has a role to play in a different. I suppose the likes of Christine Jones will be telling you more about that. So I'm not the expert on that end of things, but I can see it working on the farm. The next slide there, please. The cows are grazing in a fairly newly planted multi-species sward there, and that was one of the first. In fact, the very sward, it was we put on not first round, and it did actually favour the grass, and I kind of didn't really have the confidence built up to actually do it without nitrogen, but kind of after that I did kind of just let fly, but you could see that it favoured the grass, but eventually once we took away the nitrogen, the herbs and the legumes were able to actually express themselves properly. I suppose one other point I would have to make there is that there is a lot of research out there that shows that at any rate of nitrogen, which is even 20 or 30 kgs of nitrogen, you actually have a negative response to what the soil itself can biologically fix in terms of nitrogen. So, at any rate, you're actually harming the biology in the ground that can produce its own nitrogen. So it's just something that I feel that there is advice going around at the moment that you put on small amounts of nitrogen on multi-species swords, and I found that it's probably not the right way to go about it, and that would be my thinking on it. So the next slide, please. 8 grazings, no fertilizer. That's the same field the cow was in there, probably later in the same season. And the welly is just for scale. And you could see post grazing, which you don't have to, it's not going to look like a golf course anymore. Where it's just something we're going to have to get over, as tidiness and all that. I mean, my wife would tell you that I'm not the tidiest guy in the world anyway, but even so, you still, the golf course type look is attractive to people of the training that the likes of me had, I suppose, and a lot of you listening as well. But it's all about what actually works on a farm rather than the aesthetics of it. It's just just a pre-grazing cover there, and I suppose you can, as I've probably mentioned before other times, it's a little bit more forgiving in terms of quality when you leave it past your 20 days. So whereas normally when you're working on ryegrass, you kind of, if you go to 23, 24 days, the thing is starting to get rank and you lose cow performance. Whereas this, the multi-species, most of the different species in there, they tend to hold on to the quality far later into the rotation. So, and there's such a huge burst of growth from 20 to, we'll say 30 days. It's actually well worth leaving it those extra few days, So that's something we're experimenting with, but I do see it's somewhere we can learn a lot in the next few years. But next slide, please. we talk about, this is quite a busy slide, but we talk about, you know, do we have all of the science on all of these different species? And there is loads of data out there. This one coming from Foley University, where you have, I've circled in yellow dandelions and ryegrass in terms of different qualities, energy, crude protein, and calcium, just for the sake of it. I know that there is other figures out there for different parameters, but considered a weed, and it's actually advertised to, we should spray out a dandelion, and we don't even put this into our mixtures; they just grow naturally. For us to think that dandelion is actually a weed, it was well known before the science was there to back it up, that it had the nickname of Dairyman's Gold because the best butter used to be made when the dandelions were out. So it's just something that we need to kind of rethink when we're talking about weeds or whatever we call as weeds. That dandelion is just a case in point. Next slide, please. I've been talking about diversity from the start, and ryegrass is there on the left with the shallow root, and even we talk about diversity functional groups or different plant groups. There's still can be huge diversity between plant groups, where you see grass, two types of grass there, with cocksfoot is a much deeper root, much more drought resistant versus ryegrass. And I'm not here bashing ryegrass or anything. I think it's a great plant on its own. But in a mixture, I would definitely put it in as well. But there is a lot more to life than only one species, and every single species will have its problems. And I could say the same about cocksfoot as well, but we're actually finding that cocksfoot actually fills in very, very well in the sward. In terms of it has earlier spring growth, maybe 5 degrees instead of 6 degrees, and in summertime when there's a little bit of a mini drought or whatever, cocksfoot comes to stay. On the right there, it's well known how deep rooting chicory is, and when you see the cocksfoot actually, it kind of it's very interesting, really, I suppose. But they can bring up minerals from deep. So we move on to the next slide, please. Ryegrass on the left again, just for scale. And we wonder sometimes, do we actually have a whole lot going on with some of the more peripheral species in the mix? In this one, we've got birchfoot, trefoil, salad burners, and plantain. They actually have much deeper roots underneath than what's showing over the top. So sometimes we think that these things aren't always, actual forage yield overhead, but under the ground they have a role to play. And I suppose even moving to the next slide, you can see a Cotswold Peach slide there. Same thing, only probably better illustrated than my own slide. These deep rooting plants can just make your farm from being 6 inches deep to maybe 2 or 3 feet deep. Maybe it just probably increases the potential of your farm. So it's the way I think about it anyway. So I'll move on to the next slide, please. The ANA experiment is one I know Christine Jones has been banging on about for years, but I suppose it is the creme de la creme of experiments, really, because it's been going on so long. If you want to look up many aspects of the science, that's where you look first. That's where I would find anyone to look first. Now, I know there's actually work going on in Ireland, and there's work going on in Britain and New Zealand and all across Europe, I suppose, and even in the States, and on diversity, and it does all seem to point to the fact that diversity does work under almost any conditions. So if we're to just stay inside the box of Ireland and need to prove everything from within Ireland, we'll be a long time waiting to actually catch up, because we definitely need to expand our horizons, I suppose. And just because something hasn't been proven in Ireland doesn't mean we can't implement it from the word go once it's been proven somewhere else. So that's kind of outlook I have on how we're farming at the moment. The next slide there. 3 years zero nitrogen. That would be one of our first swords put in 18. So it's pretty much 3 years gone now. And some of the herbs are probably gone, and they're not all gone. This picture, at different times of the year, you can see different things popping up, but you can definitely see from that picture that there is a carpet of clover on this field. So, it definitely has enough of legume there to keep the thing powered on. So when I was going through Tagus figures there from 2019, I think it was, in terms of the farm here, and I know I haven't got most of my farm done yet. I haven't seeded most of the farm, probably about a third of the farm at this stage. But in this particular field, just judging by 2019 figures, using the spreading costs of the full maximized rate, 250 kgs of nitrogen per hectare, there was a cost, 6 spreadings, I think, six runs of the tractor. The cost was coming to something like €460 per hectare. And it actually hit me last night when I put up this slide, and that's actually €1,380 in 3 years per hectare. It's something that actually knock you back. It's actually a huge pile of money, and the thing about it is we actually haven't had to reduce our stocking rates whatsoever. So if you can make that kind of saving, is it not the right way to go? Next slide, please. This would be a more recent one, and this would be from my home farm, where my father is kind of largely in charge of the heifers. And it's a 40-acre block, and he actually has the whole place seeded down to multi-species in the last 3 years. So that actually every single square of ground has diversity in it. So he actually has spread no nitrogen in 2 years, and I suppose the significance of this really is the fact that he, in the 1980s, he actually won Dairy Farmer of the Year twice in the early 80s. And I remember actually I was on his shoulders. That's probably telling you how old I am. But I was on his shoulders in the early 80s. So that kind of size, and there was thousands of people on the farm, and he was actually spreading up to 400 units of nitrogen. So if you're talking about a change around in someone's attitude to nitrogen, having seen and even being awarded prize-winning farmer, to actually say that we're actually doing the complete wrong thing at that time. He was doing what is actually standard practice today, 30 years ago. So he was 30 years ahead then, and I would say he's 30 years ahead now. Next slide, please. One aspect of the farm as well is the fact that in the Dungarvan part of the farm, it's actually quite fragmented. So we always would have, as we were winter milking, we always would have grown some forage crops. So that particular crop is oats, barley, and vetch. And from what I've been learning, I suppose, about multi-species in general, it seems that there's a huge benefit to disease resistance and nitrogen fixing and that kind of stuff. And of course, if you're feeding something to cows, does it have to actually be perfect? It probably doesn't in terms of weed control, but I mean, I couldn't see too many weeds in that. Planted probably quite a generous rate, all right, but the weed control wasn't the problem. There wasn't, I think we did probably cut some of it a little bit early because there might have been a touch of disease starting into it, but coming from a place where I remember one time we were rotating away from the maize to whole crop wheat, winter wheat, and actually sprayed it 5 times. And, I really was frustrated, not just at the cost of it, but the fact that apart from, and the work of it as well, I had to drive 20 miles back, up and back with the tractor and sprayer. But, it was like, why are we growing crops that why are we growing crops that we need to spray this much stuff on? And it just didn't make sense to me. It's like, we've been growing these crops for many, many years, and in Ireland, and they're also susceptible to disease. But I suppose I just move on to the next slide there while I'm talking about the same issue. That's just another picture of the same thing, really. But it just, this field hadn't any nitrogen that year either. So there is definitely a case for some nitrogen to be used on cereals when they're in a monoculture, but when we're growing forage crops, we should be able to produce all of our own nitrogen. So that's from what I'm seeing at the moment, the kind of yields we've been getting with our whole crop. I know it's not measured or anything like that, but it seems to be every bit as good as it used to be. The next slide, please. Another from the previous year, we put in peas, oats, and barley, and you might be able to see there that there's some clover in there as well. That would have been from a previous cover crop. It was a multi-species cover crop that wasn't quite terminated, I suppose, and we planted into it, and it was really dense. And like I said already, do the cows care if there's any different herbs or clovers or anything like that? Of course they don't. The major thing I would say about trying to plant forage crops is that especially a one cut kind of a system, just and that generally speaking just for ease of harvesting, I suppose. But the thing about it is try and get plants that grow that will harvest at the same time, rather than having something that will be kind of seeds falling off of 3 or 4 weeks before you're harvesting. That's not much good to you. The quality of the feed is going to be lower and what have you. So. But we're experimenting with this stuff, and I'm sure we can add much more diversity into our forage crops as well. So next slide. Yeah, I suppose I have a few people to thank on this, and it's not quite the finish of it. But my father is one, and I know a lot of people who probably find it difficult to let the next generation to kind of have the reins or whatever. But and I know you're never retired as a farmer, but and he most certainly isn't retired, and he can stay farming as long as he wants, because he's got an attitude of a younger man, and he takes on new ideas all the time. He challenges our ideas. He comes up with new ideas. It's not a one man show by any man means. Claude and we're all of us, we could be arguing at the dinner table over something, but it's all in good humor and everything else. But it is important to have the backup at home, so you're not too worried about what other people think when you have that bit of backup. You have have a bit of confidence that everyone at home has their back or whatever. So it's nice to be able to try new things, and even if they go wrong, that you don't get hammered for it or whatever. I suppose one or two other people I need to thank is Mike Welch from WIT, and I'm not just thanking people just for the sake of it. They have zero nitrogen trials going on down in Waterford, which in WIT in the Carrigan North site. They have zero nitrogen trials with all of the different diverse species from monoculture up to very diverse swords, all different plots. And I suppose scientifically that's the way all of these trial plots should be done. I know there's a lot of trial work being going on in Ireland at the moment, and they're talking about 60 kgs of nitrogen to the hectare. But in Ireland, you need to have a control. You need to have a zero nitrogen control to actually see what's happening. And I know he's been accepting groups down there to look at the trial plots, and everything is measured properly. Not like my farm. I suppose a lot of the time we could talk about anecdotal evidence or whatever. We're farming here. We haven't dropped our stocking rate. We've been cutting our costs. So I haven't enough good things to say about diversifying our sward, but we're kind of aiming to feed the farm as much as possible in the next couple of years. But in practical terms, it takes a few years to get around to all the fields. You can't just take out all your paddocks in 1 year. You're going to have a huge shortfall in your production or whatever. But that's we're aiming to do it in the next few years. So I suppose just to touch on that, like behind them there is actually a multi-species cover crop, and you can see the type of yields you can get. I mean, we were probably sorry we didn't put that for forage, but at the time we rolled it in and tried to incorporate it into the next crop. But I suppose maybe I'm coming up on 30 minutes now. Maybe I could go back to the finish and I can answer any questions that come up. That's possible.